Today we are going to be learning about plot, the elements of plot, and how we can use plot in the future. First, we need to know what plot is. Plot is the organized pattern or sequence of events that make up a story. Really, plot is just the events of a story and how they all fit together. Every plot is made up of these different incidences or events that are related to one another. We are going to use plot diagrams to help us identify those major parts and to help us understand the plot of each story. Plot diagrams are also a great way for us to summarize what happens in a story quickly. After today's lesson, you will be able to label each part of the plot diagram and explain what each part is. So let's go ahead and start with just the labels. The first part of your story is not called the introduction, it is called the exposition. The exposition is just going to be the beginning of the story. Then we're going to get this rising action. This is where the bulk or the majority of our story is, where things start really picking up. Then you get that most suspenseful moment, the climax. After the climax, you're going to get the falling action where things start to calm down. And finally, the ending is going to be called the resolution. Notice I did not say conclusion. This is your resolution, okay? Resolution is just going to be the end of the story. Your exposition, let's start with that and I will give you a better explanation of what it is. Your exposition is going to be at the beginning of the story. You are going to get introduced to three main things. You're going to get introduced to your characters, your setting, which is the time and place a story takes place, and your main conflict. You're going to kind of find out what the story is going to be centered around. This might start with an inciting incident, which is just a moment in the story where the conflict really starts to take off. Please notice I did not say introduction, I did say exposition. We do not use the term introduction when we are talking about the plot of a story. After your exposition, you're going to move into your rising action. This is going to be the longest part of the story. It's the main part of the story where everything really progresses. Your characters and your storyline. You are going to become more familiar with the characters and the conflict. Things are just going to start getting more interesting and more interesting and more interesting. After your rising action, then that is where you hit the most exciting moment or most suspenseful moment of your story, the climax. I like to call this the kaboom moment because it's that moment where you were like, OMG, what just happened? The main conflict is going to erupt. Things are going to get crazy. It's the most suspenseful moment of the story. This might be a fight or an argument. It might be some kind of altercation or a very tense emotional moment. But by the end of the climax, a winner of the conflict will be clear. After your climax, things really start to slow down and chill out. This is called the falling action. Everything is really just starting to wind down and come to a close. Finally, the end, it's not called a conclusion, it's called a resolution. The way I think about resolution is I look at that last portion of the word resolution, and the word literally says solution there. And that's what the resolution is. It's going to give you a solution. It's going to give you a good ending and some closure. All of your conflicts are going to come to some type of solution. In a fairy tale, your resolution is almost always going to be, and they all lived happily ever after. You've heard it. I've heard it. That is the resolution normally to fairy tales, okay? So today we did learn our 5 different parts or elements of plot. We have the exposition at the beginning where we meet our characters, our setting, and our main conflict. Then we have our rising action, which is the main part of the story. Everything starts getting good and interesting. Everything really just progresses. Then we have that most crazy moment of the story called the climax, our kaboom moment. After our climax, everything starts chilling out in the falling action. And then at the end, we have our resolution, which is going to give us some kind of solution to end our story with.